Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to do a Wellness Wednesday on Thursday today. It's a day late because yesterday was the launch of the new Keto Chow flavors and I wanted to get my video out on launch day. So I decided to just do my Wellness Wednesday a day late. So I have been having some thoughts since my experiments and the continuous ketone monitor, all of those shenanigans that I shared with you guys over the last few weeks. And I was just going to try to talk through some of those thoughts. So what I have been pondering is the effect certain foods have on you and your appetite and satiety little bit longer term. So we think about like foods that have a high satiety factor, and amounts of food, amounts of fat, amounts of protein that make you feel full. But beyond that, how a certain food or meal or like diet strategy controls your appetite. So for example, like on the sardine fast, my body, when I was like eating just the sardines, it was like I was very happy to just eat the bare minimum in order to like satisfy my hunger. It would like just be a few bites in, I'd be like, don't want to eat anymore. Don't want to eat anymore. On the other hand, there are plenty of delicious foods, and like the extreme examples are going to be like carbs and sweets, you know, sugary things, processed foods especially, where it's like you take a bite, you take another bite, and it's like your desire to eat more just is like amplified. And there can be kind of a lesser effect with other things. So sardines, like for me at least, are like way on this end of the spectrum where it's like I'll just eat the very bare minimum and my body will be very happy to just eat a very tiny amount of calories and I will be perfectly fine. And then on the other end, extreme end of the scale is, you know, the processed foods where it's like you eat a bite and there's something inside of you that's like, just keep eating. And I think a lot of other things can fall somewhere on that spectrum. And when you do low carb, like there's some people that say that the keto diet just works because you're cutting out a lot of those highly addictive or, you know, the moreish type foods. S'mores are called s'mores for a reason. They're like on this end of the spectrum. Anyways, so some people will say, well, of course, when you cut out all of that stuff, then you naturally eat less. And I think that is a big part of why certain strategies work. And the keto diet is no different especially when you're cutting out more of the processed foods and you're just sticking with, you know, meat and cheese and fats and low carb veggies and stuff like that. I think that definitely is an aspect to why the keto diet is so powerful. But of course, we live in a time where there are amazingly lots of delicious keto products and a lot of delicious innovations with recipes and things. So there's a little bit more of a difficulty not having that moreish response to eating. And this, I'm sure, is stronger for some people than for others. Some people really don't even struggle with wanting to overeat like the processed, you know, carb foods. And then there's others who will go on a keto diet and they still have those like overeating tendencies, especially with things like dairy, cheese, heavy cream, that kind of thing. And it seems like the tool of eating a really boring diet actually can be a really helpful tool for people, especially when it comes to weight loss. That is what I'm finding. So when I did the sardine fast, and even when I did the egg fast, it wasn't quite as intense, but I still felt like, I won't eat too much. Like there was no desire to overeat eggs. There's a desire to overeat cheese and things like that, but on the egg fast, that's limited. You can't eat, if you're following the rules, you can't really overeat cheese. But as far as like the eggs, there's nothing in me that wants to overeat eggs. I have trouble eating more than about 3 eggs in a sitting, unless it's like mixed into something or part of another recipe. But just, you know, sitting down to a plate of eggs, I do not do well with eating more than about 3. And so it was really easy for me to, you know, eat the bare minimum of the food and then kind of move on with my life. And it was easy to keep my calories a little bit lower than if I were eating other things that I enjoyed more. And so like the calories in, calories out type crowd, they'll be like, this doesn't matter. All that matters is calories. So whether you're eating eggs or whether you're eating Twinkies, as long as you just control your calories, it's the same. And I do think there's a tiny, tiny little bit of truth to that. And if you want to like micromanage your calories, some people can control their weight just by micromanaging their calories, and they continue to eat like these super processed foods. But I think that is like making life so much more difficult than it has to be, because it's like you're putting up some kind of a roadblock that you're just going to have to keep plowing through. That's not a very good analogy, but it's like, it's just making it more difficult than it has to be. And I've been there, trying to just manage calories and just be like, oh, I just need to eat less and exercise more and just manage the number of calories. It becomes a full-time job, and you're just working against yourself with your appetite and your cravings, and recognizing how foods affect, like when you eat a certain type of food or a certain type of diet, how it affects your appetite can be a really, really important like tool for people who struggle more with that. I think that's a huge reason why the carnivore diet is so popular and so effective for a lot of people, because there are some people who will overeat and, have binge tendencies with protein and butter and things like that. But you're like reducing down those like extra delicious foods that it's really easy to do that with. When you're on keto, you can still have things like peanut butter and like, sugar-free desserts and things like that that still can kind of stimulate that appetite. And a lot of people find, I definitely found this when I experimented with carnivore, that when you reduce down those delicious choices and you just like, there's just not an option for you, it's a lot easier to be on top of your appetite and to control the amount you eat. So practically why I've been kind of thinking about this is because I went through the sardine challenge and the egg fast challenge, and I felt that effect very strongly, like the lack of desire to eat. It wasn't like I had this super strong desire to eat and I was like, oh no, I can only have eggs or I can only have sardines. It's like eating the sardines and eggs actually physically made my body not want to eat. And when I finished those, I was like, I would like to, make some kind of a more enjoyable ketogenic type day that I can add to my regular, lifestyle. And so I was like, well, if I just keep my macros kind of at that 75% fat, and keeping my protein, around that 75 grams. As long as I kept my protein around that 75 grams, it seemed to allow for my ketones to go a bit higher. My brain felt better on the ketones. So I was like, maybe if I throw in days just where I'm like really controlling my macros and, watching my protein, maybe that would just be enough. And like, there's part of me that thinks, yes, that would help increase my ketones. And if I just was focusing on the numbers and like pushing through hunger, I could totally do that. But what I found is that when I started trying to do that with delicious foods that I enjoy more than sardines and eggs, the amount of hunger and cravings, and it was physical. It wasn't just mental. Mental was definitely a part of it. But it was like I all of a sudden had to deal with the desire to eat more, when I didn't have that when I was just eating the sardines or just eating the egg fast. So for me, I found that I don't think it's going to be a really good strategy to just try to count macros. And I do think there was something about physically counting them also that was like triggering in my brain, where it's like when you're trying to count and calculate, it just makes me want to rebel and not, follow all those numbers. It was weird. So a combination of the counting itself and the like more delicious food that just makes my body want more of it. It just didn't work. It just didn't work for me. And so I'm finding that if I do want to incorporate more of these ketogenic type days in there, unless I just want to push through the hunger and cravings, I'm gonna have to make my food a little bit more boring and kind of model it more towards a sardine fast or an egg fast if I want that hunger and craving suppressing effect. And like I said, I went through a time where I just thought it was all about calories, and if I could just figure out and like force myself to eat fewer calories. What is the chicken doing on the porch? Chicken wanted to say hi. Say hi. Say hi. No pooping on my porch. So I definitely could just force control over my calories and my macros and get some sort of results. But I think a lot of us have come from that thinking before, and we found that ultimately in the long run, it just didn't work. I always say it's like hanging off the side of a cliff, like trying to count calories and control your calories to a super low intake. You're like holding on to the side of the cliff, and you can do it for a little while, but eventually you will fall. Another good analogy is a rubber band, like trying to stay low calorie and control your calories is like stretching a rubber band. Eventually it's going to snap back or it's going to break, and you're not going to be able to sustain like the continued pulling. Like there's an end point that you just can't surpass unless someone is, physically keeping food from you and you're starving to death. Or if you move into like anorexia type, eating disorder or something like that, but that's a little bit different. So I think a lot of us, instead of trying to figure out like what macros and what number of calories actually work perfectly, we're more looking for tools where we can implement them, and just implementing those tools naturally without huge effort help us to control our overeating tendencies. And when you are trying to actively lose weight, if you have weight on your body to lose, and I know that this is debated, I am currently at the place where I do think that calories matter in that situation. And if you have body fat on your body that you want to lose, a lot of times you get to the point where you have to figure out a way to eat less, whether that be throwing in 24, 48, 36-hour fasts every once in a while, whether it be every once in a while eating a leaner day, whether it be, doing an 80-20 with, lower protein every once in a while. A lot of people who like at the beginning of their journey, who have a lot of weight to lose, just making like dietary changes, like changing the types of food and not necessarily the amount of food that you eat, they can lose lots and lots of weight. And so some people will say that calories don't matter, and you can, eat 3,000 calories on keto and you'll lose weight. And that does work for some people in certain situations, depending on where they're at. But for a lot of us, especially women, we get to the point where like we've lost as much as we can just by making those changes. And some kind of tweaking with the calories is just necessary in order to continue to lose weight. That is my current thinking, at least. And like I say about everything, it is definitely open to change. But for me, instead of just trying to like white knuckle like lower calories, and especially like sustained low calories, because obviously your body will adjust to that, your metabolism will adjust, and eventually that will stop working. So like finding tools to mix in lower calorie days and like mono food days that really control your appetite and help make it easier to eat lower calorie. Like those are the kind of tools that I'm interested in for like continued weight loss. So anyways, I feel like this was a pretty rambly Wellness Wednesday. These are just thoughts that have been kind of rolling around in my brain, and just thought I'd try to get them out in a coherent manner. I'm not sure that I succeeded on that. But that is what I am thinking about with like the desire for being nourished as well as the desire for allowing the body to continue to lose weight. Finding some kind of a balance in there to figure out how to do that is kind of where my head is at right now. So anyways, let me know your thoughts down below. I would love to hear it. Like I said, I am not a fan of low calorie for long term. I'm not a fan of low fat for long term. I love fat. I just think that for certain people, in certain situations, in order to really get down to a weight that they're comfortable with, that would be healthy for their body, sometimes some sort of lower calorie strategy has to be implemented, but it has to be implemented so carefully, because done the wrong way or done like to the extreme can do so much damage. I mean, we're seeing that. That's so obvious in the diet world right now. But then at the same time, like, I don't deny that sometimes your calories need to be lower in order for your body to eat up the body fat that you want it to eat up. So trying to balance all that, trying to juggle all that, like, it's tricky. And I think these mono food diets, beyond just being a way to control the calories and the macros, I think they also have an appetite suppressing effect. And just because they are not very delicious, at least the ones that I did were not like the most delicious to me, things that I wanted to overeat. So I feel like they are helpful strategies. It's good to know that about myself and about those foods, because I can use them to my advantage. So I do have some more challenges coming. I actually started one today that I will be sharing about soon, similar to the sardine fast, just with some tweaks. And so you will be seeing like day by day videos for that. So you can look forward to those videos coming soon. Thank you for joining me on this Wellness Thursday. Hope you guys are doing well, and I will see you again in the next video.